Welcome to the Strange North channel. In this video, I'm going to show you the top 10 haunted locations in Regina, Saskatchewan. And there's definitely a healthy debate over whether ghosts are even real or not. I just wanted to show you some places that are generally accepted as having a legend of some sort of ghostly activity. So let's get started. At number 1 is the Saskatchewan Science Centre. This is located in Wascana Centre, the big park in the middle of the city that features many other attractions. This was built around a former power plant and then expanded over time. And I wouldn't expect a building like this to be haunted, but apparently it is. The most well-known ghost of this building is that of the young boy who appears in a conductor's hat and joins in with school tours. And then he vanishes if anyone approaches him, but many people have talked about seeing this boy in the conductor's hat. People have also talked about hearing a disembodied male voice that calls out for help. And apparently there's also a malevolent female spirit who doesn't like men and follows them around. I also read about a staff member who claimed that the IMAX side of this facility was the most haunted area, and that at various times they saw someone out of the corner of their eye approaching them, and then when they turned towards them they would vanish. And again, I wouldn't expect a place like this to be haunted, but apparently it's one of the most well-known haunted locations in the city. At number 2 is the McKillip Residence at 1800 College Avenue. This house has gone through a few different uses over the years. It was originally the home of a local judge and his family, and it was later used as the headquarters for the local women's suffrage movement in Regina. Down the road, it became a very popular coffee shop called Magellan's Global Coffee House, and it was staff members at this coffee shop that first started talking about ghostly activity happening in this house. And people talked about seeing a ghostly lady in a wedding dress that would wander around the halls, and one staff member even talked about this lady passing right through her. And of course, people would also talk about appliances and lights turning on and off and things moving around mysteriously. There haven't been any confirmed deaths to have taken place in this house, but there are rumors of a nanny committing suicide, a woman drowning in a cistern, and even someone dying in a fire at some point in this house. And the legend continues to this day, and it is considered one of the main haunted locations in the city. At number 3 is the Willow Island Overlook. Now I apologize, I was in Regina and I took some videos of the other haunted locations, but I didn't take video of this place. It's a long story. So the Willow Island Overlook is a structure that serves 3 primary functions. It's the main ferry boat loading dock for Willow Island just across the water. It's also an observation spot looking over the lake, and it's also an irrigation pump house for this area of the park. And according to local legends, there are 2 ghosts that linger in this area. The first ghost is that of a man who once jumped off the overlook and got stuck in the mud at the bottom of the lake and eventually drowned. People have talked about smelling a rotting smell in this area, something that's attributed to him. And I even read an interesting article that someone in Regina had written where they talk about observing geese in the area on the water, and that when they approach the area that is reportedly haunted, they start flapping their wings and squawking, and the person said it was like the geese were fighting for space with something in the area. And so this strange activity has been attributed to this man who drowned in the lake. The second ghost is that of a young girl, and she has primarily been seen at the main dock on Willow Island. People have seen her, and then when they go to approach her and try to find her, she's nowhere to be found. It's unclear what the origin story of the ghostly young girl is, but according to local legend, this particular area of Wascana Lake around the Overlook is haunted by 2 separate ghosts. At number 4 is Regina General Hospital. This is pretty typical of old hospitals. I think most old hospitals in Canada and the United States have at least one ghost story. This building has a ton of history. It was opened in 1911 with many modern additions over time, and there are many ghost stories associated with this place. People have talked about seeing a lost little boy who wanders around the old wing of the hospital and then disappears when you try to find him. People have talked about seeing the ghost of a nurse who rushes around the halls at a speed not humanly possible, which honestly sounds super creepy. And people have talked about ghostly old nurses who disappear when you turn around. They'll catch a glimpse of them in a mirror or sort of out of the corner of their eye, and when they turn around to face them, they just vanish. And so, like most old major hospitals in the country, this one is also haunted. At number 5 is Hotel Saskatchewan. This is the biggest, grandest, most opulent hotel in the city, and it's one of Canada's grand railway hotels. It was opened by the Canadian Pacific Railway in 1927, and like all of Canada's other grand railway hotels, this one is also haunted. There have been sightings of a ghostly bellhop in an old-style uniform walking around the building. There are stories of a ghostly woman who hovers over the beds of single men at night, waking them up and terrifying them. A staff member of this hotel talked about being in the Regency ballroom and having a pair of curtains start floating in the air on their own, freaking everyone out. Apparently there have been a bunch of suicides in this hotel, and people have mentioned the 7th and 8th floors as having the most ghostly activity. And in keeping with the trend across the country, Regina's big railway hotel is also haunted. At number 6 is Dark Hall. This is also located in the Wascana Center, and it's in a particular area that is home to the College Avenue campus of the University of Regina. This hall is a performance venue, and it's now used as the main venue for the Conservatory of Music at the University of Regina. But for many years, it was the main concert hall in the city and home of the Regina Symphony Orchestra. It was named after Francis Nicholson Dark, who was the youngest mayor in Regina's history and a very prominent person in the city. And he was also a well-known real estate mogul, and he owned various properties and hotels across the city. When Francis Dark eventually died in 1940, his funeral was held in Dark Hall, and his ghost is said to haunt this building to this day. And people have repeatedly seen his apparition appearing in the audience during performances, and he disappears by the end of every show. And so with its foreboding presence and ominous name, this building is one of the most haunted locations in the city. At number 7 is Casino Regina. So this is a major building in the city. It was built in 1912, and it was used as the main Canadian Pacific Railway train station. It was expanded over time and eventually closed as a train station, but it opened as a casino in 1996, and to this day this place has been very popular. People have talked about seeing the ghosts of train station employees in their old uniforms in this building, and there are stories of an apparition of a woman who appears in the upper floors. In the early 1900s, a section of the main building was used as holding cells, and apparently the ghost of an old prisoner still haunts the basement of this building. And so this place definitely deserves a mention when you're talking about haunted locations in Regina. At number 8 is Government House. This is one of the oldest major buildings in the city. It was opened in 1891, and it used to be the official residence of the Lieutenant Governor of the Northwest Territories. The Northwest Territories is now one of Canada's 3 northern territories, but at one time that territory encompassed what is now Alberta and Saskatchewan, and so Regina used to be part of the Northwest Territories. The building is no longer the main residence of the Lieutenant Governor, but it serves as the official office. And a large portion of this building is open to the public as a museum, and it's really cool. And the facility really leans into the ghost mythology by having seance nights and ghost tours of this building. The spirits of this place are generally regarded as being positive instead of negative, but they sometimes play pranks as well as helping people. People have heard footsteps in areas that ought to be empty, lights turn on and off, and objects move around randomly. So over time, the staff members in this building have referred to the ghost that haunts this place as Howie. That's the main nickname that's been attributed to this ghost. But a lot of people think that a particular person haunts this building, and that was a previous cook named Chun Li. I hope I'm saying that name right. He moved to Regina from China in the 1930s, and he served as the main cook in this building under Lieutenant Governors Munro and McNabb. Chun Li died of pneumonia in 1938, and he lived in this facility, and he actually died within its walls. And his death is the only confirmed death to have ever taken place in this building. And so many people regard him as the main ghost of this building, but other people have mentioned the possibility of spirits traveling to this building with furniture and items. The museum portion of this building features many antique items that have been donated from various other places across the country, including other museums, and people have mentioned the possibility of spirits traveling with some of these items to this location. And if you're interested in attending one of the paranormal type events at this place, definitely check out their website, because like I said, they really lean into their ghost stories. And so to this day, this place remains one of the most haunted locations in Regina. At number 9 is the Assiniboia Club building. This is right on Victoria Avenue in downtown Regina, and it's now occupied by the very popular Crave Kitchen and Wine Bar. This building was opened in 1912, and for many years it was a very popular men's club, the Assiniboia Club. This was a fraternal social organization, and officially women were not allowed in the building, but at times men would sneak sex workers into the building and they would meet on the upper floors. And according to the legend, a man once killed a woman on the 3rd floor, and her ghost is said to haunt the building to this day. Her ghost has been seen many times within the walls of this building, and a popular story tells of a staff member who once saw a pair of foot-long vases hovering in the air in the middle of the room, which totally freaked them out. And of course, people have talked about the typical paranormal type stuff happening, mysterious footsteps, disembodied voices, and things mysteriously moving around on their own. And so you have to mention this building when you're talking about haunted locations in the city. At number 10 to finish out our list is the Strathy Building in what I think is the coolest neighborhood in Regina, the old warehouse district just north of downtown. The Strathy Building is now a municipal heritage property. It was opened in 1914, and its developers really wanted this building to be one of the most beautiful grand warehouses in this newly developing neighborhood. The first manager of this building was James Strathy, who was good friends with the man who built this warehouse. In the early 1930s, James Strathy was driving home to Regina from Calgary, and he got into a bad car accident on the highway. During the accident, he was pretty severely injured, and he also received head injuries. And his mental health really deteriorated quite quickly in the years following this accident. He never really recovered. He became more and more depressed, and he slowly gave up control of the warehouse to his assistant. One day, laying on the tracks across the street from the warehouse, someone found James Strathy's dead body. His head was nearly blown off, and there was a shotgun laying nearby. And some people thought it may have been a suicide, and many other people thought he was murdered, and so the cause of his death was never really confirmed. And to this day, his ghost is said to haunt the Strathy Building and the area surrounding it. And the ghost of Jim appears as a man with a full beard wearing 1930s clothing. The Bushwhacker Brew Pub now occupies the main floor of this building. It's a fantastic brew pub, by the way. And of course, over the years, staff members in this pub have talked about all sorts of strange experiences happening to them besides seeing the ghost of Jim. And this remains one of the classic haunted locations in the city.